if you're not at my pace. You're not at my level, you're not in my race. One foot on the gas, I'm pushing the brakes. You dancing with the devil, there's no recital. I'm killing competition, ain't no revival. I shoot it to kill it, I'm aiming for vitals. I'm showing no mercy when facing my rivals. Snakes in the grass, they getting exposed. I know they be lurking, I'm watching them close. Acting like friends, but really they foes. Saw they be scheming and said adios. Yeah, I gotta get it. By any means. I gotta get it. The mindset. I gotta get it, the mindset. I gotta get it, the mindset.
Generating any kind of income right now is tough. Hey, it's David Hollander, President and founder of Liberty Group LLC and host of Protect Your Assets radio show and podcast. Interest rates right now are so low that people are putting all their money into stocks trying to get dividends and some growth. It doesn't have to be that way. Right now, there is an alternative asset class in energy which can be non-correlated to the stock market and provide some good income opportunities. Find out more about this by visiting the Liberty Group either at their website, libertygroupllc.com, or give us a call anytime you like, particularly after your race. 866-PROTECT is the number. Again, 866-776-8328. Remember the number, 866-PROTECT. It's easy. Go ahead and give my team a call, and we'll see you on the racetrack.
With season 1 and 2 in the rear view mirror, it's finally time to go racing again. Welcome everyone to one of the newest circuits updated on the iRacing service, the Watkins Glen International Circuit, and welcome to season 3 of the Real Racers Virtual Club presented by Liberty Group. Happy that all of you are joining us here on RaceSpotTV. I'm your host, Joshua Lee. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Lorenzo Bonder, with Arjuna Kankipati controlling all of the action in the virtual production trailer. And Lorenzo, we're getting ready to go racing around this Watkins Glen International track in the Pro Mazdas, which is going to be a very exciting combo to see. Lime Rock, Gateway, Red Bull Ring, a smattering of ovals and road courses see these drivers in the future.
Yeah, it's majorly an American championship with some few tracks like Red Bull Ring and Silverstone being part of the calendar right there as the European shift in this 11 race season. But the good thing is we start off with Watkins Glen and we end in the Watkins Glen, Josh. So it will provide some very interesting racing for us because I've been testing the setup, and the setup looks like we're going to have a draft party from start to finish.
And of course, the Red Bull Ring being one of the newest circuits as well. As we take a look up the top of Watkins Glen International, we're using the boot layout here today. We're keeping that bus stop chicane that has been a staple of the NASCAR Cup Series events here after the last couple of years. And you can see we're using the boot layout as well, diving in a lot of the elevation change that comes with the boot, and then right back onto the normal layout to make 11 turns, about 3.5 miles that will go racing on here tonight. And like I mentioned, those Pro Mazdas are going to be used tonight. You mentioned it, Lorenzo, all the drafting that we might see. And everybody out there for practice right now, about 7 minutes remaining. And everybody out there laying down those lap times. A 140.4 is the fastest lap time we have up on the board right now. That's set by Peter Dempsey in the 6. We'll see if anybody is able to get close to that here in practice. Only second place is Andre Castro with Anders Krohn, last year's champion, sitting there in third.
Yeah, and one of those few tracks that I do think is quite hard for you to nail a perfect lap, because first and foremost, we had the change from last season in the Watkins Glen. This new build of 2022 brought the new Watkins Glen into the iRacing service. So there's a little bit of change into how they take turn one and how they approach some other corners. There's a little bit more leniency how you approach maybe, for example, the second to last corner, or even that turn number one, where back in the days, in the old Watkins Glen, you could go as wide as you can possibly want as long as you came back into the tarmac and didn't get an off track. Right now, if you go a little bit off into the curbing, now you can get an off track, and that can offset your entire lap completely. So it does add a little bit of a challenge with this new track, but in my opinion, it is a banger of a track, this new edition.
We saw it coming down the back straightaway there. Robert Wickens giving a little bit of a shot to Anders Krohn in the number 47. But this is round number 1 of 11 that we are going to see this season. And season 4 of the championship, Kurt Ponsegrau was the winner of season 1. Matthew Escagetta was the winner of season 2. Anders Krohn, we mentioned him, winner of season 3. So we have 3 unique champions in 3 seasons. And getting started tonight here at Watkins Glen, Lorenzo. Still 5 minutes left in practice, but who are you watching to be the threats? Are you looking at Anders Krohn to maybe go 2 in a row? Or are you looking at somebody else, maybe the likes of Peter Dempsey or Andre Castro, who are showing some great speed here in practice to be some threats for the championship? I know it's still round number 1, but we can start predicting for the future.
No, we can start predicting for the future. I do have 3 drivers in my point of view. First and foremost, I think Peter Dempsey is a guy that really fast driver. You can see, of course, top of the board right now for him. Second driver is Nikita Lastachkin. We have ovals in this. Well, we had ovals last season, but Nikita, I've drawn against him a few Indy fixed races the past season. Very fast driver, knows what to do around the ovals. So he's a guy that we should be to keep an eye on whenever we go to the oval sections. And lastly, Nolan Siegel, the Indy Pro 2000 driver for the E-Force, and still a young driver, but learning the ropes ever so slightly, picking up with his best result in the 2000 last season. Should be a guy we should be looking for because he has a lot of pace.
We stay on board with Nikita Lastachkin here, a real-life Indy Lights driver, so a little bit of real-life oval experience there when it comes to the Indy Lights cars, and they have a smattering of real-life racers, whether they get in a car or talk about the drivers in the cars. They are here ready to race for the 4th season of the Real Racers Virtual Club. Still about 3 minutes remaining before we hop into our qualifying session tonight, which is going to be about 10 minutes, and then we'll go racing for 25 minutes around the virtual Watkins Glen International Circuit. Getting a great look now there at Robert Watkins, who got himself turned around. It looks like coming through the boot there. He'll get that number 9 machine turned around and going to try and get a faster lap to move up above the top 10. But mentioned Peter Dempsey still currently fastest, as we've got a replay of what happened here to Robert Watkins just coming down the boot, and it looked like Lorenzo, he might have gotten caught up by this downhill braking zone.
Yeah, it is a tricky braking zone. You can see the cars going off wide over there. Basically, in the old Watkins Glen, you cannot do that. The problem is you're going downhill, and that shift going downhill, maybe with the brake bias a little bit more added to the rear, it does make the car a little bit lighter than usual, and it's not surprising to spin. And one thing we haven't mentioned, there is a little bit of change of cars. We had the Pro Mazda last season. Now we had the it is still Pro Mazda of sorts, but it is the upgrade into the PM18, which is a little bit more powerful. It's a little bit of an F4S car. Ouch. Josh Green testing the limits of the track right there. But it is a car that I do think is a lot of fun to drive.
We're going to take a look at Josh Green here coming off of the bus stop. Was it a mistake, or did he decide that he wanted to go back to the pit lane pretty quickly? Oh, wow, it was a huge mistake there. So he was coming off the bus stop and just got that car insanely loose, and not a lot of runoff area there leading up to that tires, and just slams into them. And something we're going to see, of course, the new iRacing damage model. We saw it there, how the car crashed, and we're going to see it a lot tonight, of course, with how this race is going to go. Very easy to get tire damage, to get front wing damage, something these drivers are going to need to navigate tonight. We have 24 drivers sitting and ready to go. They're all finishing up practice now and qualifying, getting ready to begin. Like I mentioned, 10 minutes of qualifying is on the deck, and then we'll have 25 minutes of racing to go so far here tonight. We'd like to thank a handful of the sponsors that helped to put on the event here for Real Racers Virtual Club, starting, of course, with Liberty Group. They believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always wanted. And you can learn more information about Liberty Group online. Also, we'd like to thank Coforce. They are a digital media marketing agency specializing in the world of motorsports. You can visit www.coforce.com or find them at a race event near you. We also would like to thank the Stephen Wilson Racing Academy. They have been around for over 20 plus years, and of course owned and founded by Stephen Wilson, a current NTT IndyCar driver. So thank you to Liberty Group, Coforce, and the Stephen Wilson Racing Academy for their support of Real Racers Virtual Club. And we are getting ready to get started with Season 4 of action, getting ready for that session to change over and for us to get started in qualifying. We'll take a short break here on RaceSpotTV, and we'll be right back with qualifying and race coverage. You're tuning in to the Real Racers Virtual Club on RaceSpot. cars are hitting the track once again here at the virtual Watkins Glen International Raceway. We're glad all of you are back with us here for Real Racers Virtual Club, the first race of Season 4, live on RaceSpotTV. Josh Rowley here with you in the booth. Lorenzo Bonder is alongside Arjuna Kankipati down in the virtual production trailer. Lorenzo, cars are hitting the track. It's qualifying time, and this is going to be an interesting qualifying session. We've talked about the slipstream. We've talked about the draft. That's going to be important for getting those high speeds.
Yeah, it's going to be important, and more importantly, who's going to be willing to share that draft going into the fast lap, because we know how important it is for you to get that good first sector. It kind of breaks off a little bit when you get off the inner loop or the bus stop and you're going to the boot itself. But regardless, it's going to be a very fast lap. We should be able to see all full 140s all around, but with the first few laps of the car, you're still trying to get the heat up in the tires. It's going to be a little bit tricky for you to navigate properly and get that really good lap going.
We saw the 69 machine there. That was Nicholas Leo. That got turned around coming into the bus stop. Everybody getting ready to make their first laps here in qualifying. It is a 10-minute open qualifying session. So that draft, that slipstream, we mentioned it, is going to come into play. We'll see who's going to be able to utilize that the best and who is unfortunately going to fall victim, maybe leading the line too much here in qualifying. Let's take a ride on board with the number 47. It's last year's Season 3's champion, Anders Krohn. Let's see how he navigates the Watkins Glen International Circuit.
And Josh,
Lorenzo,
Josh, you can see basically he's not going off wide into turn number 1. You can, like I said, you can do that basically into the last iteration of the track. Now you have to be a little bit more careful. The curbing itself does offset the car a little bit, depending how you go. 6th gear, you're gonna downshift basically to 5th or even 4th, so you can get that grip and get that power early out. And you can see just taking the middle, you nearly can go basically full flat, but the car does jump a little bit over the transition to the first and the second leg of the boot leg. 3rd gear down and just stay really tight within the beginning of the boot. You're gonna go basically to the over rev or the half revs of the 5th gear, brake to 4th, maybe 3rd, downshift to 2nd if you want to, but you lose time over there. Use the full run off of the curve. Now you're going to a little bit of an uphill then downhill section. You're not going to go into 6th gear. You're barely going to hit it. You stay in 3rd gear. You can go as wide as you possibly want. iRacing does allow you to do that. Then you're going to downshift to 2nd gear. Into the exit out of the boot, the car does get a little bit loose because it is a transition to an uphill section. And you're going to go basically to 5th gear, stay in 5th. You can go down into 4th. You can use that off area as well, but it does offset you to the final corner. You're going to stay in 5th, maybe go down to 4th for you to get the better run. And that's basically the lap, which is going to be right about 140.8.
That's exactly what Anders Krohn ran, and that is exactly what is going to put him up to the top of the board. A 140.862, the fastest time. Nikita Listachkin moves up to P5. Jackson Ball going to move himself into P7. Stefan Wilson, not with the best opening lap in the 25. He's going to try and come back. Wade Michael, John Showerman, all getting their first laps in. And we'll see who is going to be able to challenge with Anders Krohn at the top of the board. Zach Hudson moves up into P9. Rick Sheldon going to move into P10. But still at the front, it is all Anders Krohn. But take a look at 2nd place, Lorenzo. Robert Wickens, a great lap from the Canadian, as that number 9 tries to get a little bit of a better improvement. He's got the 3 machine in front of him. That's Charles Cruz giving him some help.
Yeah, giving him some help into the toe of the boot. And good to see Robert Wickens having a really good qualifying over here. He was right in the middle of the pack when he was in the practice session. I think he was 10th place during the practice session. So him having a good qualify, as Cruz have a little bit of lets him go, but Wickens basically botches his lap into the exit of the boot, and he's going to have to reset one more time. And will he give the toe to Cruz? Not at all. Just let Cruz deal all by that for himself.
And a BMW tribute paint on that Pro Mazda as well. A very sharp looking machine for Robert Watkins, who sits P2. Stefan Wilson, see if he can improve. He doesn't have a driver in front of him here in that number 25. Wondering if that lack of draft is going to affect this lap time. Let's see as he comes across the line. How quick is it going to be? It's going to be a 140.4. Not going to hurt him at all. It is going to put him to the top of the board by over 3/10. What a lap from Stefan Wilson. It might have been using his Racing Academy lessons to himself. He moves up to the top of the board in the 25.
Yeah, wondering how he found that 140.4 in comparison to everybody else. Of course, there is a little bit of a struggle, but I think that's where the tires do begin to get that grip that you probably want, and you can push for better laps now. But what a blazing lap for Stefan Wilson, basically blowing everybody out of the water.
We'll see if anybody is going to get even close to that. We have drivers in the draft here who are not able to get that close. We'll find out. Still a couple more minutes left, about 3.5, as we get a good look at John Trefethan, who works his way through the final couple of corners here at Watkins Glen. He goes through turn 11 now, and let's see what he can do across the line. And it looks like he might be starting a brand new lap here. Currently sits P19. He comes across the line in the number 2. He will not improve on that last lap, as it looks like it was an out lap for him, and he's going to get into turn number 1, rotate that car on the bottom of the racetrack. Here's the number 15 machine of Wade Michael, who sits P11 in qualifying. Going to try and improve with 3 minutes left before we get started in that 25-minute race that we will have to cap off the evening. More shuffling around on the board as Josh Green moves up in a second. Peter Dempsey there as well. Josh Green, what a lap from him, a 140.525, about 3/100ths of a second off of the current leader, Stefan Wilson. Nikita Lastachkin is going to move up a spot as well, put him to P6. Kurt Pansegrau will move up into P16. As we'll see what the number 10 machine of Josh Green can do. It looks like a couple of drivers moving out of his way in front of him. As we take a look at this big line here, Lorenzo, getting ready to slingshot down the back straightaway. That's 5 cars strong, all entering the bus stop. Can they make a run at Stefan Wilson and Josh Green who hold the top spots? Oh, 1 car into the wall.
Yeah, that looked like to be the number 15 that was in the wall.
That would have been the 15 machine into the wall, and that would have been Wade Michael, who was hoping to look for a better time. Not sure if it was the 15 or if it was somebody else, but getting a great focus here on the 47 of Anders Krohn. He had the fastest lap, and then Dempsey, Green, and Wilson were able to overtake him. Can the 47 get up to the top of the board? Only 90 seconds left. Nobody can take a new time. Everybody will be coming onto the track and having to put down another flyer. And it looks like the 8 machine of Cabot Bigham, that was him into the wall. He hasn't even set a qualifying time yet, and now he won't get to, as we see 2 more cars wrecking in the background as Anders Krohn tries to complete this lap. That's the 14 of Max Butler into the wall.
Yeah, and wondering how the being upside down feels with about a minute to go over here qualify. Only 3 drivers haven't set a lap all around the track. Nolan Siegel, Cabot Bigham, and Simon Sykes are the only 3 drivers who haven't been able to set a lap. But then again, like I mentioned, it isn't the easiest lap for you to set a lap in, even though you can set a lap, but the delta between first and last is about 3.5 seconds, just showing how difficult the track is.
And there's the 3 drivers getting caught up there. While you were talking, Lorenzo, Andre Castro was able to go to the top of the board with 35 seconds left. 140.425 is the quick time. Can anybody get over top of that? Don't believe Andre Castro is going to be able to get this final lap in. We'll see how much time this session will add on to the end of this qualifying time, or if we're just going to see 10 minutes expire and we go right into the starting grid for tonight's race. So looks like Andre Castro will be able to complete this lap that he is on, and we'll see if he can improve on his 140.425. A lot of drivers up at the top are entering the pit lane, but Stefan Wilson still has an opportunity to get another lap in. He's got about 15 seconds to make it to the line, however. One Alpine goes spinning in behind, and Stefan Wilson goes wide in turn 10. This is not going to be a pole position for the 25. He has to back out of that lap, and coming through the final couple of corners looks to be the last driver setting a time, and it is going to be enough for Andre Castro. What a lap for the 77 machine. He sits on the top. Can Anders Krohn get on top of him and get the pole position away? Crosses the line. Is it enough? It doesn't look like it's going to be able to. He will improve on his time, but he won't improve on the position on the leaderboard. So Andre Castro will start on the pole position for race number 1 of season 4 for the Real Racers Virtual Club. We wait for the session to transfer over into the race as Matthew Escagetta, last season's champion, comes across the line in the number 21. He's only going to be good enough for 19th, and he'll slam that Red Bull testing livery into the tire barrier. But Lorenzo, we're seeing times get faster over the course of qualifying as Cabot Bingham comes across the line. What are your expectations going into the race? Because we're seeing a couple of drivers that did not have the speed in practice suddenly be at the top of the board here in qualifying.
Yeah, it's a little bit surprising to see, for example, I think Brian Simpson, his practice time actually was equal to his qualifying one, but some of the drivers not being over there, I would say maybe John Showerman maybe not being able to be around the top 10 or closer to the top 10 is a little bit surprising. Charles Cruz managed to upgrade his lap, but I thought it would be top 5 in my opinion. But having Andre Castro, Stefan Wilson, and Josh Green within top 3 is going to be a really interesting first set of laps, because how they're going to switch positions is going to be key.
Castro with the pole, Wilson, Green, Krohn, and Dempsey. We're going to round out that top 5 of qualifying. We'll take a look at the starting grid here in just a few moments, but first we take another look at this Watkins Glen International layout. The boot layout being used here in virtual Watkins Glen, New York, in the heart of the United States of America. 3.5 miles, just about 3.45 to be specific, just around 5.5 kilometers as well. 11 turns these drivers are going to have to navigate in the Pro Mazdas. We're ready to take a look at the starting grid for race number 1 of season 4 for the Real Racers Virtual Club. Let's see how they're all going to line up from virtual Watkins Glen. It's Andre Castro who will take home the pole position. Stefan Wilson sits to his outside with Josh Green and Anders Krohn on row 2. Peter Dempsey, Robert Wickens going to round out the opening 6 spots. Going back from there, Simon Sykes will start P7. Charles Cruz will start in the 8th spot. Nikita Lastotchkin and Max Butler going to round out your top 10. Rick Sheldon and Dave Anderson going to share row 6 on the grid. Down in P13, it'll be Jackson Ball with Brian Simpson to his outside. Wade Michael and Zach Hudson share the 8th row with John Schwarman and Jeremy Clark, going to round out the opening 9 rows with Matthew Escagetta, Season 2 champion, next to Cabot Bingham with Kurt Pansegrau, Season 1 champion, on the inside of row number 11. Nicholas Leo to his outside. John Trefethan and Nolan Siegel are going to round out the 24 starting positions for tonight's race. So we get ready to go racing here from virtual Watkins Glen. The pace truck will get started. It'll be a rolling start. So we do have a bit of a formation lap forming as we get ready to go racing. Lorenzo, your biggest keys to winning this race, because Castro is fast, Wilson is fast, but we know Watkins Glen, we know these cars. Basically anybody can come from the back to the front relatively quickly.
Yeah, everybody can win this one. I think the key vital thing to do in this race is be patient with the overtakes. Don't overdrive your car. You can get easily punished with this car if you try to make the overtake, try to force that overtake onto someone, especially going through the bus stop on the first section, on the first sector of the track. Just be patient, try to find your strides, and whenever you think you are comfortable pushing the car a little bit further than usual, go for it, because that car gives you the grip to go for that.
And do you think that slipstream is going to lead to a lot of passes? Because I can remember commentating Formula 3 cars here over the last 2 iRacing seasons. That slipstream down the back straightaway going into the bus stop or going into the carousel meant a lot, and it meant for passes.
Yeah, it means a lot as well in the Indy Pro Mazda 18. I do commentate with that with Nolan until last season. It's a car that the first few laps are tricky. Even though you are in the draft, the car wants to get a little bit slidey than usual because it is on coat tires. It does take about 2 to 3 laps itself for you to build up the tires, just like the F3 does. It is very similar in terms of technicalities in the car, but once it picks up the pace, boy, it gives you the grip for you to attack the corners appropriately. But I think in comparison to the F3s, there's a little bit more of a tire wear on this car than the F3 does. So you have to manage that, and it's a track that because you can slide a lot, you can have a lot of braking zones where you can lock up the car. You have to manage maybe that for the first half of the race so you can have that grip for the second half.
As the field rolls through the carousel, we'll go into the boot. Looks like Nolan Siegel did not take to the grid, and it looks like that 17 machine is going to move all the way to the back of the field. That wondering what Simon Sykes happened there. Looks like he's going to try and get back up to the front. Was wondering if it was some sort of EOL penalty, but does not look like that is the case. He is going to try and get his grid spot back as he'll move his way through the middle of the 2x2 formation here for the virtual Watkins Glen International. They work their way through the toe of the boot through turn number 7. This is an uphill turn, very, very difficult to get right. They'll continue to go uphill and then dive downhill into the very difficult downhill braking zone of turn number 8, the heel of the boot. They'll go back uphill to get back onto the normal Watkins Glen course that is run by the NASCAR Cup Xfinity and Truck Series. They're just getting ready to go through the heel of the boot now. But 23 drivers sit behind the iRacing pace truck, all getting ready to begin racing for Season 4 of the Real Racers Virtual Club. Season 1 saw Kurt Panzergru take home the season championship. Matthew Escagetta took it home in Season 2. Anders Krohn was able to grab it in Season 3. Will we see a driver go back-to-back? Will we see a driver get 2? Or will we see the 4th unique champion in 4 seasons? We are ready to get started as the field works their way through turn number 10. It's time to let these Pro Mazdas loose and get started for Season 4. We're happy that you're joining us here on RaceSpotTV from the virtual Watkins Glen International. It's time to let these cars loose as the iRacing pace truck will take its way into the pit lane, and Andre Castro is in control of the field. Barney the flagman waves the green flag. Let's go racing from Watkins Glen. Already an intense start down into turn number 1 as they go 3 wide. One driver goes wide in the background, but Andre Castro with a big lead. Now wrecking in the back. It looks like Jeremy Clark is involved. More cars involved. That's Kurt Panzergru involved. Season 1 champion Nicholas Leo involved in it as well. Simon Sykes with issues. He goes into the grass coming uphill. And as they continue to fight up through the field, Rick Sheldon, Jackson Ball come together. Racing into the bus stop this time. Still too wide at the front. Anders Krohn going toe-to-toe with Stefan Wilson, who catches the air as they go into the bus stop.
Yeah, just looks like Josh Green cut the course in the going to the inner loop and nearly rejoined in front of Robert Watkins. That was a little bit of a dangerous movement right there, but safe nonetheless. Lost a little bit of time. Went from third position all the way back to 9th, but still within the toe.
And you can see the 6 machine. That's Peter Dempsey going to the inside of Nikita Lostachkin. He'll be able to grab that spot as Andre Castro looks in his mirror, just trying to leave everybody behind. And Stefan Wilson, Anders Krohn, Robert Wickens, and Charles Cruz are going to round out the top 5. after those first lap incidents, Simon Sykes, Rick Sheldon, Dave Anderson, Brian Simpson, Josh Showerman, Jeremy Clark, Matthew Escagetta, and Nicholas Leo all find themselves in the pit lane. Have Jackson Ball join that group as well. Kurt Panzergrau is off pace. So 13 drivers remain on the racetrack currently. Lorenzo, let's take a look at this replay. Looks like on the left side of our screen, we've got turn number 1 up first.
Yeah, we got a little bit of drama going to turn number 1. Some car context in the battle involving Jeremy Clark and a few other drivers. The guy going off wide was Simon Sykes going off into turn number 1, but you do see a few more crashes going into T1, and you can see avoiding actions being taken by some of the drivers. It is a pandemonium that turn number 1, how you take it, and you can see now battle 3 wide going into the back, basically the back stretch, but all fighting for the top 3 spots.
Anders Krohn and Robert Wickens continuing to spar as they go through the bus stop. Barely being able to grab that spot was Robert Wickens, and that's Stefan Wilson and Robert Wickens that go fighting. Anders Krohn is a little bit above this battle in the number 47, but Stefan Wilson in the 25 not letting Robert Wickens get away in that number 9. Peter Dempsey watches from the tail end of the top 5, but he's got his own battle behind him as Charles Cruz, Nikita Lastachkin go battling, and a dive to the inside in that group from the number 10 of Josh Green. He went to the inside, now going to try the outside line on Nikita Lastachkin into the heel of the boot, turn number 8. He's not going to be able to get there. Lastachkin's going to hold the spot as Wickens and Wilson go battling once again up the hill out of turn number 9.
Out of turn number 9, it's getting a little bit dangerous between Lastachkin and Josh Green outside of the booth, and Green trying to recover his positions, but Lastachkin putting up a defensive effort, still remaining in the draft out Charles Cruz, but I'm nearly calling disaster because it looks like Josh Green trying to make up the ground and try to get those spots. As we see a few cars going off pit lane. Fast lap done by Andre Castro, 1:40.859 for the leader of the race. And Josh Green, if he wants to pick up the pace, I think he needs to be a little bit more efficient. Just let the car drive a little bit and pick up. And we see the incident right after turn number 1.
As the incident with Rick Sheldon, along with, I believe, Jackson Ball. That was Brian Simpson getting caught up in that one as well. And we have an incident in the bus stop.
Oh.
As it looks like Stefan Wilson just came together with Robert Wickens. I believe one more driver involved in that one too. But damage to the front end of that number 25 machine. And Robert Wickens is going to have to tow back to the pit lane. That number 9 machine is stranded at the bus stop, and he will tow it back into the pit lane. That is going to lose a ton of time for Robert Wickens. No, Lorenzo, these drivers have 2 fast repairs, but if they have to tow it back to the pit lane, they lose a ton of time. There's the incident. Just a small tap to the back wing from Stefan Wilson sends Robert Wickens into the tires at the bus stop. That's just the difference in braking zone there.
Yeah, and Stefan immediately apologized to Robert. He knows that it was a little bit of a mistake from the number 25 driver as he got the Canadian driver into the barrier. He's going to have to tow it back to the pit lane. Might lose a lap out of this, but it is really unfortunate to see this battle go up in shambles. But I'm trying to see who was the driver. I think that was Peter Dempsey who made over like avoiding moves, and I think he was from 5th or 4th place or 6th place all the way back to 3rd place in just that few split seconds of chaos that we had on the bus stop.
Josh Green is going to bring that number 10 machine into the pit lane. You can see a little bit of front wing damage to that number 10. I mentioned the fast repairs. Everybody has 2 here in this race tonight. The problem is, if you have to tow it back to the pit lane, you're not getting much of an advantage there with the fast repair because you lose so much time with the tow. Here's Nikita Lastachkin. Going to try and look to the outside of the 6 of Peter Dempsey. Not going to be able to do it, but look at Dempsey having to go almost full lock on that wheel to save it. Very, very difficult, Lorenzo, to keep these cars on the gray stuff. Everybody wants to use those rumble strips, maximize those track limits, as we see the 3 of Charles Cruz try to go to the inside of Nikita Lastachkin for the 4th spot. These cars don't have a lot of suspension. They will get up in the air very quickly as you go over those rumble strips. We've already seen it multiple times, especially in the bus stop.
Yeah, it does travel a little bit, so you have to be a little bit cautious how you approach the curbings around the bus stop itself, and also a few more areas. Like I said, turn number 1, you can offset your car a little bit more than usual. This said, going out of the boot, you can use it and abuse it as much as you want. The curbings let you get away with that, but then again, what a move from Peter Dempsey to keep that car on track. Again, these cars are a little bit more lively than usual than what they saw in the Pro Mazdas last season, but like I said, once it picks up the grip, it is a very fun car to drive, and it's rewarding if you know what you're doing with the car and how well you're pushing the car towards the latter end of the race.
Andre Castro continuing to pull away at the front, 1.8 seconds, but current fastest lap belongs to Anders Krohn, who sits in second place. There's that number 77 of Andre Castro leading the way, setting the pace by 1.8 seconds over Anders Krohn, who sits in second. You gotta go way back to find third place Peter Dempsey. He sits 6.3 seconds back from second place, and take a look at the block from Listachkin. He's gonna take Charles Cruz all the way to the ground, and Listachkin's around. Is he gonna hit the wall? He barely keeps it off. He's able to continue. He'll only lose a handful of spots. Won't have to go to the pit lane for a fast repair, but Listachkin goes down into P9 after overcooking it into the bus stop.
I'm wondering if there was any contact between the drivers. I'm trying to see if there's a little bit of damage in the diffuser of Listachkin that might have put up the dampers, but no, he just went way too deep into the curbing. Like we mentioned last lap, Josh, you cannot take those curbs deeply. They will punish you immediately. And you can see the car flying over the curb, and basically that was race done for Nikita, even though he lost positions.
That was an aggressive block from Listachkin, and it worked in the moment, but unfortunately, one corner later, it ended up going sour for the number 5 machine. But Listachkin continues to run in P number 9 now. You take a look at your new 4th place runner. That's Max Butler in the number 14, as he'll continue to run now inside of the top 5. And it looks like Andre Castro sets the new fastest lap here, but Robert Wickens joins the groups of retirees with Simon Sykes and Brian Simpson. 3 drivers out of this race, and unfortunately the Canadian Wickens is going to join that group.
Yeah, it is unfortunate to see Rob join the DNF group. Like I said, one of the nicest guys to talk to, and really a positive looking guys. We see this battle between Wade Michael on the inside shot. And Stefan, I think, just lets him go by without too major hassle, so Wade Michael into 6th place.
Stefan Wilson might have a bit of damage to that number 25. I believe he has not used his fast repair yet, so that has to be front wing damage in the incident that he had with Robert Wickens. He has not brought it into the pit lane, wondering if that's a strategy call, 15 minutes left in this race, or if he just does not want to lose the track position that would be lost by coming into the pit lane. So he's deciding just to keep it on the racetrack. It must not be that bad. Still in the top 10 for Stefan Wilson, but he is losing a bit of time to the drivers in front of him, and unfortunately the drivers behind him aren't gaining a little bit of time. We go side by side. Battle for 6th between Wade Michael and Stefan Wilson on the left side. Battle for 17th between Jackson Ball and Nicholas Leo on the right side of your screen. Now, that battle between Ball and Leo, yes, it is for position for P17, but they are not on the lead lap. They are battling 1 lap down after incidents earlier on in this race. The top 12 still on the lead lap, and Andre Castro just crossed the line.
Yeah, just crossed the line last lap, a 140.592 as the last car in the lead lap is John Thrafton in 12th place. The number 2 car is about 50 seconds behind the leader. And meanwhile, we still have a few battles going around the track. You saw Nick Leo and Jackson Ball, also Matthew Escacheta and Rhys Chowder battling for positions going to the back stretch of the track as looks like Listachin's going for it on Zach Hudson.
He stepped out and he was able to get that spot. Nikita Listachkin gonna move his way up into P number 8, so he improves on where he was just a couple of laps ago after that incident. So Listachkin trying to get further up the field. And the F2, or the Indy Lights driver, excuse me, knows what he's doing when it comes to these types of cars, and especially tracks like this. Taking another look at this battle between Charles Cruz, Wade Michael, and Stefan Wilson. It didn't have Charles Cruz in it a couple of laps ago. Now it does. And down the inside, almost making contact. I believe they might have. And Wade Michael had the move made. He goes back and into P6, but he is not done. The challenge comes in, and Wade Michael trying to clear for a top 5 spot. That's exactly what he is going to do. Trying to take Stefan Wilson in tow. Going way wide is Charles Cruz. He's going to lose 2 positions in a handful of corners, down into P7, and going wide now is Wade Michael, puts Stefan Wilson up into the top 5 once again.
Yeah, Michael just butchered the corner right there. Looks like Charles Cruz, with the contact they made out of the into the shin, not the shin, but the heel of the corner. He basically picked up front end damage, and there's contact with Nikita Leskotchkin.
That is huge contact. Lestotchkin goes up and into the air. Charles Cruz is around. And it looks like both of them with terminal damage. They're going to have to tow it back to the pit lane. But 2 drivers come together. That'll give Cabot Bigham 2 spots. That'll give Josh Green 2 spots. But it was not 2 spots that Lestotchkin or Cruz were trying to give up. There's the contact. My goodness, what a hit for Nikita Lestotchkin up into the air in that number 5. Here's a better angle, Lorenzo, and it looks like that door opened slightly from Cruz. Lestotchkin took it, and it closed again before Lestotchkin could pull out.
Yeah, and I think it looks like Cruz was a little bit surprised with the aggression out of Nikita coming out of turn number 1. His speed going to turn number 2 and caught him off guard. He complained a little bit on voice chat, but you could see the door being open right there, and Nikita tried to take it, but unfortunately closed up way too late, that door, and both cars unfortunately got into contact. That's race over for both of them.
So still in the lead, it is Andre Castro who sits in the front. Anders Krohn sits in P2. That gap is still growing. It was 1.8 seconds a couple of laps ago when we last checked in. It has grown to 2.4 seconds. There's the onboard with the 47 of Anders Krohn, who is trying to chase down Andre Castro, who came in, was not one of the best in practice, laid down an amazing lap time in qualifying as he works his way past a lapped machine. What a night for Andre Castro as Anders Krohn takes as much of the curb to the inside of that bus stop as he possibly could, and keeps in second place trying to get that spot made up. Wade Michael, Stefan Wilson back in a battle here, and Wade Michael's going to take over that 5th spot over the 25 of Stefan Wilson, and they'll continue to fight at the tail end of the top 5 for the 15.
Yeah, still defending the position with Stefan. Stefan just trying to stay as close as he can possibly get within the draft of Wade Michael, going now into the toe of the boot, and Michael managed to try to get that move going on the. I'm just trying to remember over here. Just had a little bit of a blank, but that was basically Charles Cruz. As we have a car going around, and who was that?
It looks like, I believe that might have been, that was the 13, John Showerman, who just got spun around going into the into the boot, excuse me, gets spun around and into the tire barrier, and unfortunately that wheel came disconnected in the back, and that had to lead to a tow back to the pit lane for him. So that puts more drivers into the pit lane, more drivers off the lead lap as well. We're down to only 10 drivers on the lead lap, 9.5 minutes left as we rejoin the battle for 5th between Wade Michael and Stefan Wilson.
And you can see a little bit of a separation now because Stefan went way too wide to the final corner, nearly hitting the wall barrier with his front left and rear left, and had to lift out the gas a little bit, but still within the toe. He's gonna pick up that toe, maybe get about 0.4 of a second, maybe 0.3 of a second on Wade Michael by the end of the straight, and then reset all over again. But then again, I think what he's doing is just try to stay within the toe as fast as he can, so he doesn't get overtaken by Zach Hudson.
Battle for 11th continues as well as Rick Sheldon and Matthew Escagetta continue to fight. And there's the move to the inside for the 21. And the move to the inside for the Season 2 champion. They'll go side by side. They go into the bus stop. Can Escagetta get the move made around the outside? No, he cannot. He is going to have to remain in P12. And Rick Sheldon with a great run out of that corner. He is going to try and continue to pull away in P11. Add Nikita Listachkin to this battle. All of these drivers are one lap down. Nikita Listachkin, after a tow back to the pit lane in a fast repair, back on the racetrack. Might not be on the lead lap, but he's got 2 positions that he could make up right in front of him.
Now, right in front of him, and looking by the pace, he looks like to be the fastest driver out of those 2 guys. Let's see how Listachkin is going to be patient out of the boot and coming into turn number 1, and where does he pick up to make that overtake on both drivers? But I do smell we can see a 3 wide going into the back stretch anytime soon here, Josh.
Still on board with Listachkin. Here's the move to the inside. Is trying to make that happen. Is Escagetta. Is Listachkin going to take it 3 wide? No, he won't. But Rick Sheldon, what a defense from him. He's able to hold off that spot. The 21 and the 5 still want to try and have a piece of this. As they're going to almost go side by side coming up the hill. You're on board there for a moment with Rick Sheldon. Here comes Escagetta to the outside. Here comes Listachkin. He tried to go to the inside. Had the door shut on him by the 63 of Rick Sheldon. And Matthew Escagetta trying to power around to the bus stop. Almost making contact. And around goes Listachkin. He got into the air coming into the bus stop and gets himself turned around.
Yeah, again, basically same thing that happened to him last time. He actually spun around at the bus stop, just catching way too much curve. But this time he actually managed to keep it on the track. But the second curbing is what undid him. And nearly, when he rejoined, nearly got into a car contact. But now he has to fight back, and he's fighting with Jackson Ball.
Listachkin now basically in the same position he was just a couple of laps ago, just having a fight once again from towards the mid-pack, this time the mid-pack of the drivers who were 1 lap down. Andre Castro sets a new fastest lap, as here's the replay from Listachkin, a side-by-side moment in front of him. Lorenzo, he just got a little bit too much up and into the air off of that rumble strip, and unfortunately, once that car slammed back onto the ground, very difficult to keep control of it.
Yeah, very difficult. In any car whatsoever, any open wheel car, if you get that elevation or that liftoff basically of the ground, it's very hard to control once you come down into the tarmac. And doing that for 1 corner, maybe if you didn't have the second rumble strip, maybe you could have kept the car into the track, but that second rumble strip basically undid the balance of the car, and no wonder why Listachkin right there spun off and tried to rejoin the track, losing as minimal time as possible.
Battle for 14th now between Jackson Ball and Nikita Listachkin. Add Nicholas Leo into this fight as well. You're on board with him as Listachkin is going to power around Jackson Ball into the bus stop. He doesn't catch as much air there. He's able to keep that car under him and continue back into P14 for the number 5. Jackson Ball and Nicholas Leo going to try and fight now for P15 on the racetrack as we go south of 5 minutes remaining in this 25-minute opening round of this 4th season for Real Racers Virtual Club. Andre Castro leads the way. He also has the fastest lap of the race, and he also was the pole sitter. So he would maximize the amount of points he is getting from this race with the bonus point for getting the fastest lap of the race, the bonus point for getting the pole position, and for winning the race. He would be in a very, very good spot to begin this season. 2.4 seconds is Anders Krohn, behind him in second place. Wade Michaels, Stefan Wilson, and Zach Hudson looking to fight for P5.
Yeah, I was going to mention Zach Hudson finally breaking the 1 second barrier that Stefan Wilson had on him, because Stefan made a mistake out of the toe. It basically jumped to the grass, had to lift off, come back into the track. That brought Zach and Hudson a little bit closer. He had also a one-off, also coming into the heel. And who that car is? Jackson Ball. What happened to him coming to the final corner? That has to bring him back to the pit lane.
We're taking a look at the replay here. He was in that battle for P15. Oh,
Ow.
he got into the wall off the final corner. That used to be barrels.
Tire barrier.
Yeah, there used to be a tire barrier and barrels off the side there. Now it's a wall on the newly updated Watkins Glen. He made contact with it and ended up into the inside wall. Very easy, Lorenzo, with these cars. The slightest bit of contact can get them very upset.
Yeah, and once you make contact with a car, you usually pick up some sort of suspension damage, and try to navigate with the car is a little bit finicky than usual. It is not easy. It does tend to snap the car whenever you're trying to make an overtake, as now we're looking into Hudson trying to make that overtake on Stephen Wilson. He's closer than ever on the car. About 0.2 of a second separates him to the number 25 car. I'll be very honest here, Josh. I don't think that Stefan, with that wing damage that he has, is going to be able to defend Zach Hudson, who's having a great race so far, going for P16 into the top 10.
Great run for basically everybody in the top 10 tonight. It has been an amazing race, especially for Castro, Crone. Talk about Dempsey, Butler. How about Wade Michael from P15 up and into the top 5 so far tonight? A great run for him to start the season. John Trefethan, he's right at the tail end of the top 10, but take a look at his positions gained, plus 13. What a run for the number 2 machine so far. Can't discount Cabot Bigham either. He was not one of the fastest in practice nor qualifying, and is up 11 spots as Zach Hudson and Stephen Wilson go side by side. Put Hudson up and into P6.
Oh no!
Stephen Wilson is gonna go way off track off the bus stop. He is able to keep it out of the walls. He's back on the racetrack, but still loses that spot to Hudson.
Loses that spot, nearly goes into the wall, and it's basically the same thing we saw with Nikita and a whole lot of other drivers around the track. Just taking way too much curb on the entry off the bus stop, and the car just lifts off the ground, and once it comes back down, it comes hard with the nose front first, and Stefan had to go under the brakes and lock it up really quickly to avoid a major spin and bringing that car into the wall barrier.
Here's the replay of the pass from Zach Hudson on Stephen Wilson and then the ensuing incident. No, same thing. We have seen that so many times today, Lorenzo. Just one driver getting up and onto that rumble strip. Once that car slams down, having borderline no control over it, and ended up just going off and into the wall or into the runoff area at the bus stop. But as Andre Castro continues at the front, we're going to be seeing that white flag very, very soon, Lorenzo. And what a race it's been for Castro. 2.5 seconds the gap. And I'm a little bit scared seeing him go up and over that rumble strip, getting the air like that. He's just a couple of laps away from a race win.
Yeah, he's just a couple of turns away from a race win. And what a drive from Andre Castro. No problems after turn number 1. Basically kept himself into a distance and built up that distance gradually around the track. No major dramas for the number 77. A well-deserved win for the driver that dominated basically the entire first race of the season.
Field will take the white flag this time by 25 minutes, plus the white flag lap here for the Real Racers Virtual Club. Is left side of your screen, you see Andre Castro, your current race leader, getting ready to take that white flag. Rick Sheldon and Nikita Listachkin fighting on the right side of your screen. They are fighting for P13 on this racetrack. Listachkin with a big move to the inside, going into the bus stop. It might be one lap down. It might only be for P13, but we have seen a ton of aggressive overtakes from Nikita Listachkin tonight. The Indy Lights driver is feeling aggressive on the racetrack and is doing an amazing job as one driver goes around at the heel of the boot, and that was Dave Anderson.
Yeah, fortunate to see Dave Anderson going off as we have the checker flag, looks like, for Andre Castro, and he wins this race with Andrew Crone second place and Peter Dempsey will take third place into this race.
So Andre Castro, what a run for the number 77. He gets the point for the fastest lap, he gets the point for the pole position, and he gets the most points out of anybody here tonight in the Real Racers Virtual Club. Andre Castro in the 77. What a run from him tonight. Every single lap led for that machine. Anders Crone, Peter Dempsey, Max Butler, Wade Michael round out that top 5. And as drivers continue to come across the line, how about Cabot Bigham up 11 spots from where he started down in P20. John Trefethen is going to come home with the top 10 after starting in P23. He was tail end of the field. And it is checkered flag for the rest of the field as we wait on Trefethen, Panzergro, and more to come across the line. Then we'll grab a look at your full race results here tonight. But Andre Castro will be celebrating in that number 77 machine. He takes home the win. Anders Krohn in second, Peter Dempsey third, Max Butler fourth, with Wade Michael rounding out your top 5. Zach Hudson, Stephen Wilson, Josh Green, Cabot Bigham, and John Trefethen, your top 10. Going down from there, Matthew Escagetta comes home P11. Charles Cruz, P12, Nikita Lastotchkin, P13, Rick Sheldon, Nicholas Leo going to round out the top 15 with Dave Anderson, Kurt Panzergro, Jeremy Clark, John Showerman, and Jackson Ball, your top 20. Robert Wickens, Brian Simpson with Simon Sykes and Nolan Siegel. 3 of those retirees, Nolan Siegel, unfortunately, never took the green flag. The celebration is on for the New York-born number 77 of Andre Castro. And Lorenzo, before we get into the post-race show, what a race it was. A lot of action from the front of the field to the back. Just what an incredible run this was tonight.
Yeah, what an incredible run for Castro. Never left any room for doubts for Anders Krohn and Peter Dempsey to come closer. His pace was on fire. Basically a 1/10 of a second or 2/10 of a second faster per lap on Anders Krohn. So even if Krohn tried his best, he couldn't get closer to Andre Castro. He tried, but what a drive from the number 77. It does get into a good ground going into the season. It's going to be great covering these 11 rounds.
It's time to talk with your race winner tonight. It's Andre Castro, who was able to take home the win. He's with us now. And Andre, what a race this was for you tonight. I mean, just take us through going through practice. You finished second in practice, going through qualifying, getting that fastest lap, start on the pole, and then just dominating the race, leading every lap, and getting the fastest lap in the race as well.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't know about fastest lap, so that's a nice little bonus. But man, that was a really fun race, just trading laps with Anders, because if I made a little mistake, I would just give up 3/10, and it seemed like we were just kind of giving and taking the whole entire time. It was 25 minutes of like really flat out driving from both of us. But crucially, I got away at the start and just kind of got out of draft range, so I was able to do my own race and not worry about him sucking up. That was the biggest thing, is if he got in within like 1.2, 1.1 seconds, that's when we're pretty much draft locked. And at that point, we were so similar in pace that we would have just fought it out to the end. But obviously, that would have been fun, but you know, I preferred a boring race where I could just take it home. So that's what I did. I just tried to keep that gap, and I maintained it. But yeah, qualifying was good. Tried to get a bit of a tow going up the S's, I think, from one of the turn 3 cars, and that was just enough to give me that little advantage and kind of put together the rest of the lap and got the pole. And so that was probably the most important part of the whole race. But no, I just had a lot of fun.
So a great start to the campaign of Season 4 for you. We go to Lime Rock Park in 1 week's time. Can you make it 2 in a row, whether it's pole position or whether it's race win?
Yeah, I think Lime Rock's going to be a bit of a tougher track to pass on than this one, actually. So I think pole is going to be important. I will say Watkins Glen's probably my favorite track. So I don't know if that's like the peak of my success here. I'm not really sure, but I'll definitely try hard at Lime Rock, try to get the pole, and try to pull away from these guys. But yeah, thanks to Anders and everybody that put this whole thing on, for Rick Sheldon and everybody for putting this on so we can have some fun over the winter. And yeah, just happy to be here. Honestly, that was a fun race.
Congrats on the win, Andre. We'll see you in 1 week's time in virtual Lime Rock.
Thanks, appreciate it.
That was Andre Castro, driver of the number 77. He is your race winner tonight. And we move on to last season's champion, Anders Krohn, finishes second place in the field tonight. Lorenzo Bonder standing by.
Yeah, so Anders, congratulations on second place. And you gave your best to try to get closer to Andre Castro. But I think at the end of the day, given the circumstances of this race, were a little bit behind you, I think you're pretty satisfied with that P2.
It was all right, you know. I was pushing so hard to try and catch Andre Castro, and I just couldn't get it done. He just always had a, you know, tenth or two on me each lap, so I couldn't get close enough to get in his draft. I think I would have probably needed to be within 1.5 seconds to get to his draft, but I could just never get there. So nonetheless, very, very happy, and you know, awesome beginning to the season with so many great guys out. So yeah, just a ton of fun.
Yeah, and basically the season marks the beginning of using the Indy PM18, right? You guys basically drove the Pro Masters the entire season 1, 2, and 3. What are your takes on this car that is a little bit of an upgrade towards the Pro Masters, but how challenging it is if you compare it to the last season's car?
It's definitely a more difficult car to drive than the previous car. You know, the previous car, you had the privilege of the draft was so big that, you know, you could really be ways off the pace and still be in the draft. So, but yeah, this one a lot more nervous. The draft is still noticeable, but nowhere near as big. So definitely a more challenging car, but I think that's exactly what we needed in this series.
Right on, and again, Anders, congratulations on your P2. Can't wait to see what you're gonna do in 1 week time in the Lime Rock Park.
All right, much appreciated.
Thank you, and back to you, Josh.
Great to hear from second place finisher Anders Krohn. We move on in the post-race show. Finishing out your podium finishers, it will be Peter Dempsey. He finishes in third. He's joining us now. And Peter, it was a third place finish, but you made up some spots. You started inside the top 5, and luckily we were able to finish there. How was the race from your perspective?
Yeah, it was good. It was just about really surviving that first couple of laps. And settled in. Unfortunately, obviously, you know, Anders and Andre were super quick there, and once you lose a toe around here, it was tough. But had a great race, clean for the most part, and really enjoyed it. You know, racing here with a great bunch of people, and really appreciate all the effort that goes into it behind the scenes.
Moving forward in the campaign, of course, third place finish for you. Lime Rock Park, Gateway, Red Bull Ring, Silverstone Legacy. See you racing on those ovals. Peter, thank you so much for joining us here in the post-race show, and congratulations on your podium finish.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
Great to hear from all 3 of your podium finishers here tonight. And Lorenzo, as we continue the post-race show, so much excitement coming up in the calendar. Of course, we have Lime Rock Park in 1 week's time, but stuff that's really bouncing out to me is the amount of ovals we have on here. We have Phoenix Raceway and we have Gateway. So 2 ovals thrown into the smattering of road course races that we have. And Legacy Silverstone on there as well. That's expected to be a fun one, as Legacy Silverstone hasn't been the main Silverstone for now 2 years on the iRacing service.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that, right? And I'm gonna take a little bit of a shot right here. I prefer the old Silverstone to the new Silverstone. I like the faster layout that the old Silverstone had back in the day, but it's gonna be a very interesting track to do. But out of the ovals they picked on this season, it's 2 ovals that we covered in the Indy Pro 2000s a few seasons back here on RaceSpotTV, and those 2 are real bangers to use on this car. It's basically even game or fair game for everybody, so it's going to be very interesting oval races to cover coming down this season.
We continue with the post-race show. Rick Sheldon standing by with our own Lorenzo Bonder.
So, Rick Sheldon, congratulations on your race, man. And I saw that you are just over there in the top 10. I've had a few struggles coming to the first lap of the race, but talk us through about the race. How did you feel with the car so far?
Well, I mean, I thought I qualified kind of okay, but I did have a bit of a problem. The car just left me in the S's on the first lap, and I got in a crash there. Took a few guys out, so I've never really seen it. We went back and looked at it. I thought someone hit me from behind, but that didn't happen. So I guess got to blame the driver. Yeah, it was kind of an odd race, but it was fun to be out there with a big field like this and a lot of really impressive drivers out there. It's gonna be hard to get in the running this year. That's for sure. Got to have some talent and some time.
Yeah, and I really want to ask you about the growth of the series. You've been one of the guys that been through the series since its conception, and we are now at very stacked fuel. Lots of really good drivers coming from the NTT IndyCar series. Some good upcoming ones that could major into the Indy cars and some other categories. That from a guy that been since the inception, how have you been looking towards the series so far?
This is kind of the dream that we had. We're really close to what David Anderson and I originally had the concept of in the beginning of 21, when we said, hey, let's get some of our friends together. We happen to have some guys that we know that are pros, like Stefan Wilson and Anders Krohn and Nolan Siegel. And we said, let's get together a bunch of our other friends and really try to develop and get some skill up with some of the guys like us who really just came into this last year. This was our first year racing and first year on, but we all knew each other in the real world, and we'd all driven on track, or many of us have. And then it just kind of spread from there. It took a little bit of time, and we grew a little bit last season, had some much more competitive racing. And then now, as you can see, this field is, it's a pros field at the top 10. So yeah, it's great. I think we are very close to having almost what you might need 2 championships within one.
Wow.
Within one. I mean, because when you think about it, these guys that are out there, they're like, half these guys are going to go to Daytona and run in a couple weeks, and other guys are running Indy Lights or USF or Indy Pro or whatever, and it's like they're not going to have the time to race. So it's almost, think about that group of guys and how quick they are, and give them an opportunity maybe to have their own championship to fight for, and then let some of the amateur guys, even though we race in the real world, we're not on their level, although I think Max Butler would probably like to tell you he is.
Fair point, Rick. But then again, I think the work that you've been doing and the boys have been doing, I think has been phenomenal. The grid level has been stacked, and I had the pleasure to drive against some of these guys in the official series. But I hope you do very well. Go ahead.
Thank you. No, thank you. I just appreciate you having me on and broadcasting. What you guys do is great. I'm looking forward to seeing the broadcast, and I hope it was some good racing. I don't really know what happened up in the front, so I'm assuming it was some good racing up there.
Oh, there has been some good racing, all right. But then again, Rick, thank you so much for taking your time, and can't wait to see what you're going to do at Lime Rock Park in 1 week time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next week.
Back to you, Josh.
Great to hear from Rick Sheldon and his excitement for the league as well as we finish up round number 1 of season 4, Lorenzo. And this is going to be an exciting season. With what we're seeing, Andre Castro at the top, Anders Krohn, we know he's always fast, but Peter Dempsey, Max Butler, Wade Michael, a top 5, Stefan Wilson a little bit down towards the end of the top 10. This is going to be an exciting season, and what we saw here tonight at Watkins Glen, I think is going to carry over.
It's going to carry over, and I'm not going to put Andrew Castro into the highly favorites, of course, because of the point standings, he is the favorite. But there is this, like I said to Rick, this grid is so stacked that you can have 5, 6, 7 guys, or even 10 guys that are within the same pace, and the track combination is so varied that can bring the strength out of some drivers. So I do think there will be some mixes around the midpoint of the season, which are going to bring excitement into this Indy Pro Mazda season so far.
We're going to go into the mid part of the season very, very soon as we take a look at the schedule. Gateway and Phoenix race 3, the 2 ovals, but then you take a look in the middle. Red Bull Ring, the Legacy Silverstone, Interlagos, famous Formula 1 circuits, and then it's the best of IndyCar, Road America, Laguna Seca, Sonoma, and Watkins Glen, the classic layout to round out this season. But make sure you're tuning in 1 week's time, January 11th. It's round number 2 of the Real Racers Virtual Club Season 4 from virtual Lime Rock Park. You can catch all the action 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:15 p.m. Pacific, only right here on RaceSpotTV. We're happy that all of you are joining us here for round number 1 of Season 4. Make sure that you follow us everywhere at RaceSpotTV for more sim racing action. For Arjuna Kankipati controlling the broadcast tonight, and for Lorenzo Bonder, my co-commentator, my name is Joshua Lee. We thank you for joining us for the first round of the Real Racers Virtual Club Season 4 from virtual Watkins Glen. We'll see you in 1 week's time when the action continues from virtual Lime Rock.